It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you all for giving us this opportunity to be in front of you and to sponsor this event. We are absolutely thrilled to do it. And like that little piece said, you guys in the room and so many around the country are changing the way consumers think about financial services. And we love that at Ally. And I wanted to just take 15 minutes. I don't want to get in front of you and your keynote speaker too much. But I did want to at least share with you a perspective from the industry, perspective from Ally Bank, that sometimes it takes two to tango. And when we in sort of mid-2008, we were sort of thinking about the world of banking, and we were contemplating starting a new brand and a new bank. And I'm going to tell you just quickly about that story and give you a sense of what's possible from our side as well. When we were sort of thinking about it, it sort of reminded me of there's a blog called Man vs. Debt, and a gentleman named Baker writes in that about passion and purpose. And that sort of felt just right to what we did. Because when we were sitting in 2008, the world was crazy. I don't know if you think the world was crazy now, it was crazy back then. Banks were going bust, the industry was in turmoil, consumers were ridiculously unhappy, consumers were hurting, and there were over 7,000 banks out there that people could choose from. And our thought was very simple at that time. We said, if we're going to start one, it better be a good one. Because the world doesn't need another bank, but it could sure use a better bank. And that was our fundamental thought when we started to think about Ally. And it was a tough thing to do because the reality was, as a bank, consumers don't believe you. You know, if you say, we help your dreams come true, consumers hear, you don't care about me. If we say our fees are transparent, consumers hear unreasonable fees. Or choose us, all banks are the same. Or we look out for you, well, no you don't. You're just big business. And that's the reality. I think it's sort of borne out in a lot of truth. And so we said, if we're going to do this, we've got to start from some fundamental principles that are based on passion and purpose. And that passion and purpose for us was very simply, we're going to talk straight, we're going to do right by our customers, and we're going to be obviously better. Obviously better was really important for us, because being better in financial services doesn't matter. It needs to be knock you over the head, obviously better, because consumers need to see clear differentiation in what you're providing them. And that was our promise to ourselves. We said, we're going to talk straight, we're going to do right by our customers, we're going to be obviously better. And if we can build a bank around those principles, we think it'll stand out. And we launched our brand in May of 2009. So it's not been that long. And we launched it with sort of aggressive ads in the financial services category, ads that said, it's not difficult to be decent. That was a print ad that ran in a number of major publications, along with a bunch of others that sort of followed that thematic. And the idea was, we were making a promise to our customers that we're going to talk straight, we're going to be obviously better, and it's going to manifest not just in advertising, and you may have seen these, I don't know how familiar with Ally Bank, but we did a series of commercials with kids to sort of demonstrate that even kids know when something's unfair, why don't banks? And we identified clear pain points that kids would have, and we identified that, why do you allow banks to do that if kids understand that it's not fair? And then we sort of did a series on why is it that you don't love your bank? Why is it that the bank is sort of this place where you assume it's going to be a horrible place and a horrible experience? So we asked the question, do you love your bank? And right now we're running a series around no nonsense, just people sense. And the thought here is very simple. It sort of goes back to the same first principles we have. If it's not customer-centric, we won't do it, and you shouldn't accept it. And unfortunately, most of us do. You can say all that, but if it's not based on fundamentally different promises and practices and products, it's going to be all hollow. And we knew that. It was a very hard place to sort of take a stand, because if you take that stand and you don't follow through on it, you're going to look like an idiot. And so we decided we've got to follow through on this. If we're going to pick this proposition, which we believed in with passion and purpose, we've got to follow through on it. And we have. We followed up through on it with very clear practices about how we will present ourselves, with very clear tools that were sort of differentiators. And I don't want to make this a sales pitch, so I'll move on from that. But just to give you some highlights, which are obvious but unique in financial services. We put our phone number on every page of our website. That may not seem like a lot, but look around in financial services web banking sites and try and find their phone number. It's hard to do, because they don't want you to call them. We're happy to have you call, and right next to that phone number we put our call wait time. Exactly how long would you have to wait on that phone? And by the way, we're almost always under 2 minutes, usually under 1 minute. And we also have things like the dejargonator and so on. And the dejargonator, just to give you a flavor for what that is dejargonation is what you guys do every day. It's just that banks haven't gotten used to doing it. Dejargonation is, what does this thing mean that you say in bank speak? What does it mean in real speak? And we allow your cursor to go over that bank speak and see the real speak. Sometimes we're forced to do bank speak because that's what's required from a regulatory and legal perspective, but we want you to understand what it means. And so that's the dejargonator. But to be honest, social spaces, your world, put our promise to the test. Because as we started to see what your world is doing, the idea that you should be able to post a Twitter post 15, 20, 30, 50 times a day for a bank is a very scary proposition. Writing 140 characters just as yourself, that first post that you might have done several years ago, I'm sure you sort of struggled with it. Who do I want to be? What do I want to sound like? What do I want to say? This is going to define me. Well, now multiply that by tens of thousands of people or hundreds of people deciding on a single 140 character post, which is how it normally is in a big institution. And think about how difficult it is to do that. And most banks struggle with that. And we did too. But we sort of went back to our promise and said, hey, so our talk straight would be obviously better, but what would we genuinely say? And let's loosen up and say it. And we have. Now, we're still early in our little journey on social spaces, but we got used to that idea of being able to put out information that was truly from what we believed and in real time. We do our posts now. We've sort of structured it so that we'll do, I don't know, the team will tell you, but many, many posts a day, and we're able to get it through the cycle of approvals pretty quickly within the day, so it's actually relevant. But the other part of social spaces that put our promise to the test was all of your blogs. So you've got all of these consumers, consumers and people who understand the consumer landscape and how people are really feeling about it, and who have trust with their readership, talking about the choices that they have to make. Our question was, how do we think about that? Is that an asset or a risk? And we decided very early on, this is a great thing for us. Because at the end of the day, you're making our consumers make smarter financial choices, and the smarter they are about making those choices, more likely they're going to pick us. So we're happy to have more informed consumers, and that sort of got us down the path of saying, we're going to embrace this. And we did all the basic things you'd expect in this space, but we really pushed it forward in terms of working with partners like you. So blogs have fundamentally changed the way we think about it. You know, one of the stats I was thinking about just the other day was the USA Today. Historically, advertising and marketing was, let's talk about newspaper publications, getting an ad out there. And we'll spend a lot of time on a print ad. Well, USA Today, which is the largest read newspaper in the country, gets about 1 million people reading it every day. Millions more go to Google and search a financial term every day. Millions more than read USA Today, which is the largest read newspaper in the country. So now you've got the scenario where consumers are actually moving their mind share not to what's the ad in USA Today, or even what's in USA Today, but I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to search best CD rate, or how do I remove my debt, or getting debt free, or all these questions that are genuine, honest questions from the consumer, and that's where your blogs become the source by which they're creating their understanding of this marketplace. So it's much more important for us that you understand us than the USA Today reader does. And that's why we're here. The other thing that we started to realize is pain points are everywhere now. Consumers have always had pain with banking. The difference today is that their pain with banking is ubiquitous. You see it everywhere. They talk to each other about it. They emote about it. They demand change through it. And we see it ourselves. There are things that we haven't done that well, and our consumers and people who follow us are honest like hawks. Why'd you do it that way? You're probably right, you shouldn't have. It keeps us honest, and it gives the consumer a lot of power and intensity in what their demands are. And again, the question was, how do you deal with this? One of the early questions we asked ourselves is, if someone complains about a bank, do we ignore it? Do we participate? Do we respond in some way? Do we give it credibility? The classic answer, and the answer I suspect many banks practice, is ignore it. It'll go away. We don't practice that. If somebody puts a bad comment, even about us, we chime in right away. Call our Ally Care Center, give me your email address, we'll try and solve it. we'll do something about it. If they complain about another bank, and you know today, the Twitterverse is a buzz with Bank of America's $5 fee, we comment on it. We don't offer fees. What's wrong with saying that? So that's part of sort of our commitment, our thought process. And we recognize this because, frankly, the world is going to more of a blogger space. Half of all the online population qualifies as a blog reader. I qualify as a blog reader. I'm more of a consumer than a doer. I don't actually blog myself, but I certainly consume it. Over half of those people that are engaged in blogs think about the blog space as providing them that critical moment of decision about which product to go for. They're deciding, should I go with Ally Bank or should I go with Bank X? Put my money in. Hey, Blogverse, I'm going to go check this out and see what's the better choice. What are other people saying about these banks? And that's my fundamental choice decision of how I choose. And in fact, it's getting more important than social networking sites. Yes, Facebook dominates. But the reality is, intelligent information, which is what a blog can provide, is more useful than a community like Facebook, which just has a lot of friends and information. You know, if I want to find out where I should get my next credit card, I'm going to a credit card blog. I'm not going to go ask my friends per se. So that's what's sort of important on that. So I'm going to close very quickly by just sort of calling up, I think we have a shared purpose here. Our belief and what we want from our customers is the following. We want them to understand that financial products are not all the same. That's what you want them to understand. We want them to understand that there are plenty of excellent resources, your site included, that they can be a more informed consumer. That's what we want them to understand. It's not that complicated, and it makes an enormous difference. Consumers are very passive in their choice of financial services, and you know, as bloggers in this industry, what a difference small choices make. In fact, I was just making a blog the other day about small choices make a big difference in terms of get rich slowly. So it does matter, those small choices, in a big way in the long run. And of course, your money could use an ally, and I would say that ally is Ally Bank. But you can make your own choice on that. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the opportunity. There's a lot of great people from Ally and Ally Bank here in the room. You'll see them by their t-shirts that say no nonsense, just people sense. And they are also, we have a booth in the back. So please find one of us, talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. Welcome and thank you.